A badass is aware of their emotions, acknowledges their fears and owns them, and knows when they need a positive attitude adjustment. Your success is decided by your attitude. And a badass attitude flourishes with regular tune-ups designed by Badass certifier Kelly Orchard. Certifying badasses, one podcast at a time.
You know, I love me some Bobby Ocean. That's right. I love his introductions. Actually, if he could just do the podcast for me, that would be awesome. But, you know, he's not the badass certifier. I am. Hey, badass, how you doing? You know, I had a conversation last week with somebody who I don't see very often and don't really know very well, who greeted me as, hey, Miss Badass. And then we had a good laugh over it because I was able to say, you know, it does not go to old being called badass. And I know that you love it because you keep coming back, and I thank you. So, you know, if you're new to the podcast for Successful Badassery, welcome to the bus to Badassville. That's right. It is a fun ride, it will be. It can be. You know, I know that we're all under a lot of stress and anxiety, a lot of depression going around. I am not immune to it. That's why the podcast is a day late. Not because I'm depressed, but there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of details that are having to be done, and the day just got away from me, and I have to, you know, I too have to accept, just like you do, that there are just some things that have to be taken off your plate just so you can have that mental balance, okay? And, you know, my days of therapy, I am in it with my clients. And so to try to pull out of that and do a podcast and have a completely different energy, which is different, is challenging. You know, the mental gymnastics is a bit taxing. So I had to do a little bit of self-care rather than a podcast yesterday. However, the podcast is usually pretty healing for me myself because, you know, I get to talk to you and the responses that I get. And when I see the downloads that are upticking and increasing with each one, I'm so very grateful and appreciative of you who keeps coming back. It's all for you. You know, my apple a day, you know, if you don't know, you'll find out right now. I also have another podcast. It's a daily podcast called Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, and it's 60 seconds on wisdom, success, and personal growth. But to be perfectly honest with you, they aren't really 60 seconds, not every single one of them. I mean, I designed them to be a brief one so you can say 60 seconds and it flows well, but some of them are a little bit longer. They might be a minute 17, or they might be a minute 25, or a minute 3. So I've been, you know, editing them for radio, for broadcast, and that too I'm seeing an uptick in radio stations that are interested in airing Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day because they agree we need to be putting out a positive message, and I am thrilled and honored that this is starting to occur. But what it's doing is making me focus more on the apple a day and making sure that the audio sounds good. And heck, if I got to re-record some, then I will. I'm willing to do that because it's important to me. But I also have this attitude about these apples because they may be new to you, but they're not to me. And so I wrote them, recorded them, edited them, re-recorded them again. Now I'm editing them. And then we were doing an email campaign and putting them up on the website, and now the podcast. And I'm not sick of the apples. It's just that it's never ending. And I guess it's just like my orchard. It's the fruitfulness, right? I'm continuing to work with them, and it's an ongoing process. And so, you know, I had to explain this to the client the other day about their own personal growth. You know, they've come so far. They really have. And, you know, when I begin my therapy with any client or coaching, because of my last name Orchard, I do talk about, you know, like life is like planting a garden. You know, you got to work the soil, which is your soul, which is your mindset. You know, you got to get it prepared for whatever it is that you want to be planting there. You know, so what do you want your garden of life to look like? Well, then we can visualize that. But then we know that we have to take the steps to get it there. You can't just wish it to be that way. You must take steps. So once you get the idea, in your mind and in your heart of what you want your life to look like, that's when the work begins. That's why I say that awareness is such a crucial part of the Badass program or the Badass lifestyle or the Successful Badassery. You got to be aware of what is happening in your life and know that, when the time comes, I've had enough. This is not the way I imagined my life going, and it's out of control. That's when you make the decision, which is the D in Badass, to take the steps to make those changes. So, honestly, that's why my podcast is a day late today. But you see, I didn't give up. I'm not quitting. I'm staying the course. I'm just being flexible and nimble and saying, hey, you know what? I only work with badasses, so my badasses are going to understand that the podcast is a day late because they're badass, and we all show a little bit of grace and positivity. So it's a day late, but that's kind of the message. One of the things that I encourage my clients to do, which is something I've always done, is journal. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, goals, ideas is so beneficial. And so the other day I found an article that I thought I would share because this was from a Business Insider, and they call it a brain dump. Okay, I'm cool with that because that's, that is exactly what it is. It's you're dumping all of the thoughts in your brain out onto paper. So when we call it a brain dump, does it make you feel better? Because I have a client who was refusing to journal, has discovered it, and still won't call it journaling. But that's okay. We can write letters. We can write poems. We can write our notes. We can, just do some prose, or we can actually write a story of our life. And as you see it unfold on the paper, do you like the main character? Do you? Because you are the main character of your own life. How about you write your own story? This is a lot of things that I'm working on. I am done writing my last self-help book. It will be coming out soon. It is the whole process of the Badass program and the Badass acronym and what it means. And like I said, I don't have a title yet. I have a few pages that I need to just kind of tweak some editing suggestions, and really it's done. It's written. And so the editor has already looked at it. Well, I'm ready to go. And, now the next thing is going to be, let's design a book cover and name it. So I don't know yet, but it is my last self-help book. And I'm using some writing metaphors today because it doesn't mean I'm done writing, but I've been savoring notes and storing things up and collecting bits and pieces of dialogue and character development and storylines and titles for what I really want to be doing, which is my passion is writing stories that heal the heart, but it's always been that way. My heart issue wasn't what drove me to want to write these stories. I've always wanted to write these stories, but my journey along the way to getting to this point where I am now at this point in my life, man, it's given me a whole heck of a lot of material. That's for sure. So anyway, about the brain dump. That's why I'm pro the brain dumping. So I'm just going to read this article to you, and it does come from, let me see, the Business Insider. That's where I found it. Business Insider. Last week sometime. Written by a woman named Sarah Jackson. I will put the link in the show notes for you. A little bit of highlight is she says, I tested out a technique known as brain dumping to reduce distractions and improve focus at work. It can help people who have anxiety, racing thoughts, or who tend to overthink things, psychologists say. Yes, I 100% agree. And I am a licensed therapist, so I can say that. But I can also say that as a journaler myself. This is huge. It helped me clear my head and start my days organized and on top of the tasks ahead of me. Yes, I can attest to that. So I'm just going to read some of this article to you. When I first heard of brain dumping, I didn't think much of it besides having questions about its strange name. But after reading up on it, however, I decided to give it a shot for a week. I found it worked better than I thought it would, helping me start my day on the right foot, organized and on top of tasks ahead of me. At its core, brain dumping involves dumping all the thoughts, worries, lingering questions, and to-dos in your head out onto paper or another medium, often with the goal of decluttering the mind or helping manage stress or anxiety. Now, brain dumps are commonly done first thing in the morning or right before bed at night. Okay, I'll call it a brain dump because then it doesn't sound so woo-woo or chicky, like a girl. I never have called it a diary, ever. But I have kept a journal since I was 15. And it started out as just kind of my own personal creative writing project to get me into the habit of writing, because I knew way back in my early teens that I am a writer. Not that I aspire to be or I want to be, I just am. So I write, and that's how I process absolutely everything, whether it's I'm inspired to write a poem about something or I'm inspired by a story. I got to tell you, it's like clients will tell you, it's like they will say a word or a name or a topic or whatever, and suddenly I'm like, hold on a second, I got to write that down because it's a new story that's gonna come up. So I understand this process, and I know that early morning or in the evening is perfect. In fact, I always recommend kind of bookending your day. Give yourself 10 minutes on each side of the day, and it really does help you. So here are some of the benefits that you can explore with the brain dumping. It does help to reduce your anxiety. And it does help to organize your thoughts. Psychologists said that it takes those thoughts from your head so they're not constantly bouncing around in there, and it puts them somewhere so that they're not going to be forgotten, that it's written down somewhere and that you can take care of it later. In neuroscience, it actually is like if your computer was a brain, the computer's now saying, oh, okay, that data is right over there. Now our energy is free to do other things. So I highly recommend that you try out the brain dump. And what's really, really good is that I have my Apple-A-Day books that have a journal page next to them. So if you don't know where to start, just go grab one of my books. If you already possess them, fantastic. You've got them already on hand. If you don't, I'll put the link in the show notes for the Kelly Orchard's Apple-A-Day book series as well, and you can go check them out. But meanwhile, I also wanted to share this one about leadership. Coming up in March, I usually dedicate the month of March to leadership. The month of February on the Apple-A-Day has been all about love. I do have my Apple-A-Days are theme oriented, just like my B.A.D.A.S.S is an acronym. Why do I do this? Because I'm creative. I'm a creative writer, and I spent a lot of years in radio conducting and producing and working on promotions that were usually seasonal in nature. So we always had to have some clever theme or, an acronym for that, or call it this. And then the theme went with everything else. So I can't help myself. I'm sorry. It just happens. So anyway, February is the month of love. So if you want to catch up on how you can practice love, and we're not talking romantic love, we're talking about all other forms of love, then go catch the podcast. That's what I kind of like about the podcast platform, is that you can find all of them all in one place. You don't have to go looking for them. So it's on the same, whatever you're listening to this podcast, you'll find the Apple-A-Day. But journaling will really help. So leadership is my theme for March. And so this topic really hit home with me. And it's from Inc. magazine. 3 surprising secrets of smart leadership, which many don't practice. Now, last couple of weeks, I've been talking about mental health in the workplace and how a new culture, a new paradigm really needs to be evolving in the business environment, whatever work you are in. So this was really good for, how to become a smart leader. Is ultimately an inside job, and it's who you are at the core of your being. So why wouldn't you want to be the best leader that you can be? So from Inc. magazine, this is, quote, I'm paraphrasing, the lead smartly means leading with emotional intelligence, which may be surprising and rare in itself. This is what I teach. This is why it hit home with me. It takes skill, heart, and head, but any leader willing to learn and grow is capable of it. A quick roadmap for starting your path of practicing smart leadership is to lead with curiosity. The reason for curiosity as a rare leadership strength, why is it? Research has found it to be a solid framework for acquiring knowledge. We all know having a growth mindset is a good foundation to keep learning, and it takes curiosity to do that. Not only is curiosity key to the learning process, it's also great for overall life satisfaction. Several research studies suggest curious people have better relationships, connect better, and enjoy socializing more. In fact, other people are more easily attracted and feel socially closer to individuals that display curiosity. Another tip: lead with self-awareness. One of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, may be the most important skill for a leader to manage or to master. It's arguably the most important attribute for a leader who wants to create a culture of growth and development. With self-awareness, you can probe your emotions in any given situation to understand what you're feeling and why. Then you can boil it down to one important question: do you really understand yourself? Lead by accepting feedback. The tendency for many leaders is to hear the good ideas and opinions of others, but not only truly consider their own. But that's all they're doing. It's a theme that points to a lack of good listening skills. To reverse course, the path starts with accepting feedback. Every good business leader has a coach who will give them honest feedback and help them improve and push themselves. That means opening yourself up to scrutiny from colleagues through 360 reviews, engagement surveys, and other forms of potentially stinging feedback. But the payoff will be worth it. It helps to create a culture of openness and transparency, and to establish trust and awareness at the organizational level. Now, I do have these articles for you, and I will include them in the show notes, but I just wanted to reiterate the things that I share with you in this podcast are components of the License to be Badass mentality. Let's just call it a mentality, a mental state. All right. Badass isn't about being like somebody said, oh, I get it. It's not about like being the harsh biker kind of badass. No, this is about being the cool badass that everybody wants to follow and hang out with because they got their stuff together. Doesn't mean though that you're not human and that you don't have episodes of sadness, depression, anxiety, anger. Those are just real emotions. What you're going to learn is how to regulate them, how to understand them, and then how to navigate the waters around them, setting boundaries, knowing who you are and your identity, what you will take and what you will not accept, and then also learning to love yourself as you are. So badass means to be yourself. Your attitude is going to determine your success. You got to decide that you want to make a choice, make a change. And then I got all the tools for you there. Practice self-awareness. Be steadfast and stay the course no matter what obstacles come your way. And you will be successfully badass. So that is the BADASS acronym. And as we wrap up on today's podcast, sorry I was a day late. Hope it was worth it. Thank you for coming back and for sharing it, because obviously I'm seeing the upticks on my downloads and I'm seeing what topics are really hot for you. And I'm going to continue to address it for you. I do feel like I have a good, my finger on the pulse of things that are going on. I definitely with my clientele and with my friends in radio. So that's pretty much my focus there. I've got people individually and businesses that I work with in their business or in their personal life, and then I love my radio folk. So that's pretty much my focus. So I'm off to go be a therapist today. Thankful that I have a break for gentle yoga too. It's part of that ultimate self-care. You've got to take care of yourself if you're taking care of others. And my work, I love my work. I love experiencing, watching my clients have healing moments and improve their lives. I love it. I do know also that in order for me to continue to love what I do, I must take care of myself. That's really important too. So part of my self-care practice is in the middle of this day today, I'm going to take a yoga class. Yeah, I do much more than that, but that is one thing, and I just wanted to share that with you, is because even in the midst of a busy day, in fact, I would encourage you not to schedule your days to be overwhelmingly busy, because that just increases your anxiety. There's one thing about the hustle that's good and it makes you feel productive, but it can also have a negative effect and have and impact your health and your mentality if you're working too much. This season is a time for us to focus on the balance. So I want to welcome you to the podcast for Successful Badassery. And I want to thank you for being here, Badass. And let's get started. You can download my Badass Habits ebook. It's totally free. It's 31 micro mental health habits that you can implement and start right away. And it's totally free. And there is a little box that you can click on the form that says, yes, I want a sticker too. And I will put it in the mail for you. So in the meantime, Mr. Ocean, please help me say goodbye to my friends one more time.
The most offensive F word you know is fear. A badass becomes fearless. Flipping the format on the fear of failure. Snag your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensetobebadass.com.